Imagine waking up and discovering that your entire family had disappeared during the night. No traces, no signs of struggle, just nothing. That's exactly what happened in the savannas of Zimbabwe. An entire troop of baboons simply disintegrated over the course of just a few days. First, mangled bodies were found, then more and more, until nobody was left. Researchers were baffled. Leopards, lions, hyenas, none of the usual suspects made sense. The evidence didn't add up. What was happening there was something completely different, something that had never been documented before. And when the truth finally came to light, it changed everything we knew about the African food chain. In the vast plains of Zimbabwe, baboons had always lived following simple survival rules. During the day, they foraged in groups, always with alert sentinels. At night, they climbed the tallest trees, out of reach of terrestrial predators. It was a system that had worked for millions of years. The social hierarchy of baboons is fascinating. Dominant males can weigh up to 88 pounds and have canine teeth that can rival those of a leopard. They are not easy prey. A single bite from an adult male can cause terrible and fatal injuries. That's why even the most experienced predators think twice before attacking them. But then, in 2018, something changed drastically. Bodies of baboons began appearing in different areas of Manapul's National Park. At first, researchers thought these were isolated cases, perhaps a particularly aggressive leopard or a pack of opportunistic hyenas. However, the patterns didn't make sense. The bodies weren't being dragged into trees as leopards do. There were no signs of the characteristic bite marks from hyenas. And even stranger, the baboons were being found on the ground, some decapitated, far from their safe trees. Why would they voluntarily come down? The situation became even more intriguing when researchers realized that the attacks weren't random. There was a methodology, an almost surgical precision. The baboons weren't being hunted individually out of opportunism. It was something much more organized. Dr. Peter Blinston, a specialist in primate behavior, was puzzled. In his 3 decades studying baboons, he had never seen anything like it. Baboons have extremely effective defense mechanisms, he explained. When they sense danger, they immediately communicate through specific alarm calls. Each type of predator has a different sound, one for leopards, another for eagles, another for snakes. But in these attacks, the baboons seemed to be coming down from the trees on their own. It was as if something was forcing them to abandon their safe position. But what? Leopards are natural climbers, so it wouldn't make sense for baboons to come down to escape from them. The evidence kept accumulating, deep bite marks, wound patterns that suggested multiple attackers working in coordination. 5 different troops had already been decimated when researchers finally managed to install monitoring cameras in the most affected areas. What they were about to discover would completely change our understanding of predation in Africa. Before we reveal what this mysterious predator is, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next videos about the most surprising behaviors in the animal kingdom. Turn on notifications, because what you're about to discover is going to blow your mind. The answer came on an October afternoon when the cameras finally captured the impossible. It wasn't lions, it wasn't leopards, it wasn't even hyenas. The predator that was terrorizing the baboons was something nobody expected, a pack of African wild dogs. This might seem anticlimactic at first glance, but the reality is absolutely impressive. These animals have a reputation for being the most efficient predators in Africa, with a hunting success rate of up to 80%, mainly hunting antelopes like impalas and kudas, but hunting baboons that had never been systematically documented before. African wild dogs weigh on average between 44 to 55 pounds each, approximately the same weight as an adult male baboon. Individually, it would be a very high challenge to face a baboon well armed with sharp fangs. But in a pack, that completely changes the game. The technique of the wild dogs was brilliant and brutal at the same time. They developed a specific strategy for hunting baboons that had never been observed before. This is a behavior that had not been observed until then, and was only witnessed in Manapools, Zimbabwe. The baboons, following their evolutionary instincts, should have done what they always did when they spotted terrestrial predators: climb up trees to escape. After all, dogs can't climb trees like leopards can. It was the perfect strategy against any other predator. But they didn't do that. They were actually climbing down from the trees to run away from the dogs. But the wild dogs weren't interested in chasing the baboons over long distances. They had a much more sophisticated plan. Some members of the pack hid strategically in the most likely escape routes. When the baboons came down and started running, they fell directly into an ambush. The coordination was perfect. While some dogs distracted and divided the group of baboons, others positioned themselves to intercept isolated individuals. In a matter of seconds, a baboon that had been safe in the trees found itself surrounded by 5 or 6 predators working in perfect synchrony. The most impressive thing is that the wild dogs developed different specific roles during these hunts. Some were responsible for forcing the baboons to come down, others for dividing the group, and some specialized in making the final capture. However, the baboons didn't accept this new predator passively. The adult male has a formidable defense and can attack its predators with its large and sharp canine teeth, which can seriously injure predators as formidable as leopards. After the first attacks, the baboons began adapting their defense strategies. The dominant males began forming combat groups, attacking the wild dogs in coordination. Their canine teeth managed to seriously injure several dogs. But the persistence of the wild dogs was relentless. Even with injuries to some dogs, the pack continued to return. They learned from each encounter, refining their techniques and developing new methods to neutralize the baboons' defenses. One of the most brutal tactics observed was what researchers called a saturation attack. The wild dogs attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, completely overwhelming the baboons' response capacity. Even if 1 or 2 dogs were injured by the defending males, 3 or 4 others were already executing the capture. Based on direct and indirect observations and analyses of fecal samples, it was demonstrated that baboons form a substantial part of African wild dogs' diet and were hunted more frequently than would be expected based on availability. This behavioral change has profound ecological implications. With the growth of baboon populations in the region, some bird species began to decline as the primates competed for resources and fed on eggs and chicks. The wild dogs may be helping to regulate this population, balancing the ecosystem. Additionally, wild dogs traditionally depend on hunting antelopes like impalas. This new food source may be helping to reduce pressure on those traditional prey populations. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect is how this demonstrates the incredible adaptability of African predators. In a constantly changing environment, the ability to develop new hunting strategies can be the difference between survival and extinction. But what if it were an individual confrontation? One wild dog against an adult male baboon without interference from the pack. The wild dog would have some clear advantages: an incredibly powerful bite capable of crushing bones, tougher skin that reduces the impact of bites and scratches, and superior speed and endurance in a prolonged fight. But the baboon wouldn't fall behind either. Canine teeth proportionally larger than those of a leopard, superior intelligence. Baboons are highly strategic primates and can improvise during combat, ability to use arms and hands. If it managed to grab the dog from behind, it could guarantee a fatal advantage and great agility in short-distance attacks. In my opinion, it would be a dangerous fight for both animals. While wild dogs proved to be relentless predators against baboons in groups, In an individual battle, the result could be very different. I would bet on a slight advantage for the baboon. Perhaps 60% versus 40% for the wild dog, but of course, the dog could still surprise at any moment. This discovery in mana pools reminds us that nature is still full of surprises. Even after decades studying these animals, completely new behaviors can emerge, changing everything we thought we knew. African wild dogs are one of Africa's most endangered species, with fewer than 7,000 individuals remaining in the wild. Observing their capacity for adaptation and development of new hunting strategies gives us hope that, with adequate protection, these incredible creatures can continue surprising researchers for generations. And you? What did you think of this incredible behavioral adaptation? Who do you think would win in an individual fight between a wild dog and a baboon? Leave your opinion in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now, so you don't miss our next videos about the most surprising behaviors in the animal kingdom. And don't forget to watch the video I left as a gift for you on the screen. I'm sure you're going to be impressed with what I prepared.